Okay, good morning everybody, and it's really a true pleasure and honor to be here today to address this group. Thank you very much, Brenda, Mayor Veer, Mayor Wood, Councillor Johnson. It's a pleasure to have the city elected officials here in county. I just want to basically today take an opportunity. By the way, I was at the hockey game last night, so go Oilers, for all you Flames fans, suck it. I better just start my stopwatch. So I got home very late, so I don't know if I'll be at my best, but I'm certainly going to try. Today I just want to basically share my story with you, and with that pull out some key learnings that I hope can be useful in your daily lives in business. So first of all, just a bit of background. As Rod from Community or Service alluded to, I am the CEO of Chatters, which is a chain of 101 hair salons across the country of Canada, doing about $150 million in sales. And as Mayor Veer alluded to, Red Deer is an awesome place to do business. We have strategically and purposefully kept our business in Red Deer for the past 30 years, even though there was several times pressure to move to bigger centers like Calgary or Edmonton. But we have our national distribution hub here. We distribute products from Victoria all the way to Newfoundland, right from Red Deer. So we've really incubated our business from one location right here in Red Deer to where we are today. So I owe a great debt of gratitude to Red Deer, and this community has really helped me and my partners and my family have a great deal of success. So I think for those of you that are in Central Alberta doing business, you have a tremendous opportunity before you to really grow your business. There's success story after success story that comes out of this market. And I'm very proud to be here, and I'm very proud to call Chatters, or call Red Deer Chatters home. So basically in business for me, I'm going to take you back a number of years, but the first most important thing I want to chat about in business, and many of you who are new in business, some of you are seasoned, you'll know that, and I refer to them as influencers. So I have several people in my life that have been very, very important influencers in my career and that have helped our business to grow. And so influencers might be, in my case, the key influencers are my parents, which I'll talk about. It could be siblings, friends, colleagues, teachers, but you'll have those people in your life that kind of support you unconditionally and that are there for you, and they provide a very strong influence. And you really want to be in the presence of those people to help you grow your business. And so I just want to take you back a little bit to give you, what I really want to share is just my story. And I've really never shared this from sort of A to Z before, so you're getting the first time. This may be the last time, but it's something that that's really what I wanted to do today. I didn't bring a presentation. I just want to share with you how some kid at 13 years old cleaning banks is now the CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation. And really that starts back in the mid-1970s. I was just a young boy, and my parents were doing quite well. And my dad is a carpenter, my mom was a school teacher. They were both working in Red Deer. My dad was building houses and finding good success. The 1970s were not unlike 2011 through 2014 in Red Deer. It was kind of a boom time, and so people were having success, as was my family. They weren't wealthy, but certainly we had a great quality of life. And then 1981 happened, 1981, and complete devastation hit our family. And we were virtually on the verge of bankruptcy. And so what was interesting there was I was only 13 years old. So what does a 13-year-old really know about this family financial devastation? And when I look at my kids at 13, they probably wouldn't have had a clue what was going on. But our situation in our family, there was 5 of us, a younger brother 7 years younger, and an older sister, and a mom and a dad. And so we were very close-knit, and I was very involved with my parents. And I remember at 13 years old being at the kitchen table with them, going through the finances. And I know it seems extremely strange, and that might just be the aptitude that I have. But they shared with me, and so I was kind of sharing in this immense amount of stress. And I just remember the horrible fear that we had, and it was a really, really challenging time for our family. My dad had several pieces of land that he was involved in prior to the crash. Interest rates skyrocketed. Things were very bad for our family. And so I remember one of my dad's really good friends was a manager of a bank in town, and he phoned my dad one day. And when I came home from school, my parents were just, the whole mood had changed, and they were very excited. And they were very excited because he phoned and said, "Larry, I've got a great opportunity for you. We're replacing our janitors. If you want to come in and clean our banks, we have an opportunity for you. And that was actually something we considered highly fortunate. So we had this opportunity to go downtown and clean the TD Bank back in the early 1980s for $900 a month. And shortly thereafter, we got the Royal Trust branch. We were able to clean that as well. It was located in Bauer Mall. And when I say we, every day, Monday to Friday, unless it was a statutory holiday, my parents, myself, my younger brother, who was 6 when it started, almost 9 when it finished, the 5 of us went at 5 p.m. we left, we went to the downtown bank, and we cleaned it, and we all had our specific job. My brother, who was 6, and in those days they didn't have as many computers, they had a lot of employees, there was a lot of desks, and they all had small garbage cans. So the 6-year-old would go around and gather all the garbage cans and empty them into a big garbage can, which we'd take out. My mom and my sister did the general cleaning, wiped the desks, the lunchroom, those types of things. I was responsible to vacuum the entire branch, and my dad looked after the reception area, largely the vinyl tile floor that oftentimes needed to be maintained really well. And I remember usually twice a year we'd have to go in for the whole weekend and strip the wax off these floors and run the equipment. And so that was a big, and our family was able to learn together, laugh together, love together in that situation. And it was a very challenging time for us. But as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I spent every evening cleaning a bank. And that is a very true story, but we felt very fortunate because we were able to maintain our lifestyle. During that time period, my dad had odd jobs and would work during the day, and my mom would substitute school teach. She also delivered the Auto Trader magazine to all the gas stations on Thursdays, and they just did anything. And the first lesson I want to share with you as an entrepreneur that I really learned from those most influential people was hard work. Anything can be accomplished with hard work. And so my parents were from Saskatchewan, they're prairie people, and they really instilled a strong work ethic in us, and we really worked together as a family. So that was really the first stage that gave a really strong foundation for what was going to happen next. And back in the mid-1980s, men and boys were migrating from barbershops to hair salons. Much different than what's happening today, kind of the opposite's now happening. You have men and boys migrating from hair salons like Chatters to barbershops like Tommy Gunn's. So we're kind of going back to that old school, but in the mid-1980s it was the reverse. Going to a barbershop wasn't cool, going to a hair salon was. And unfortunately we couldn't afford to go to very many hair salons. I actually went to the school and got my hair cut, or my mother cut my hair a lot. And so when there was a salon that opened in Red Deer back in 1985, and it was called the Green Apple Family Hair Cutters. And the day they opened, they offered free haircuts to everybody in the city of Red Deer, which was really an opportunity for myself and my dad. We were pretty excited, so we went down for these free haircuts. And I would say to you, I'll get into the whole story. We ended up buying the Green Apple, and I'll talk about that. But to this day, every time we open a location, we offer free haircuts on our grand opening day. And the reason we do that is because the only reason I'm even involved in this business is because the owner at the time of the Green Apple had the foresight to run that promotion, which eventually made us customers and subsequently owners. So we were clients of this Green Apple, and the interesting thing was about the Green Apple, because how does a family who knows nothing about the hair business get into the hair business? It's extremely strange, but the interesting thing was about the Green Apple, the proprietor was actually a radio disc jockey, and he was a big personality. Some of you may know him or remember him. His name was Wayne Barry, and Wayne worked for CKRD Radio. And Wayne had bought this hair salon, and his wife was a hairdresser, and he would work in that hair salon every day. And so when you went in there and got your hair cut, there was this big personality at the front desk, and he would greet you, and he had a big smile, and he was doing a really great job and had a really busy hair salon. And so one day my dad was renovating a real estate office, Waddell Mailing Pander here in Red Deer. And he was in there renovating it in the evenings. He couldn't do it when they were working. And just by chance, he notices on one of the desks a brochure that a real estate agent had on the Green Apple. This business was being marketed for sale. And so he grabbed the brochure and he brought it home, and he said to my mom and I, he goes, and meanwhile I was in my first year of college, and I really didn't like college, and I think education is really important. So I'm not advocating that people shouldn't get educated, because they really need to, and my kids will have university educations, even though I do not. I have 1 year of college, but I really didn't like college. My mind was always on how am I going to make money? And I really didn't share with you in the 1980s all the various business opportunities that my parents tried, from solar panels to cedar shake meals. Everything failed. For us and our family, we always joked that if we broke even, we had a hell of a great success. And because there's just so many things were tried. My parents were just true entrepreneurs. And I was trying some things early, even in high school, to make money from, I won't say that, but I was very lucky because, I'll just tell the story really quick. My driver's license, when I was born in 1968, when I went and got my learner's license, in those days they took a picture and they put a paper in behind, and the paper was either your learner's license, then when you got your real license, they just changed out the paper, they didn't change out the picture. How this happens, to me, I don't know. I mean, I was born very lucky and very blessed, but I born in 1968. When I go pick up my learner's license, they print on my license, it's not fake ID, 1966. So I'm 60 and I'm actually 18. I'm bootlegging booze and all kinds of crazy things to make money. But anyway, not really. But anyway, I had lots of fun with that. And so the best part about that was when you got a speeding ticket, so then I said I lost my license because they weren't barcoded. So I had two licenses, one that said 1966, one that said 1968. When the police would pull me over, I'd pull up the 1966 license, they would issue an adult ticket. And in those days, they had juvenile tickets and adult tickets. So then you'd go to the courthouse and say, oh, this guy screwed up, I'm born in 1960, he gave me an adult ticket, and they would throw it out. So I had a free ticket to speed. So the moral of the story is I'm not really an entrepreneur, I'm kind of a criminal. In any event, just moving on here. So we've got the lesson of hard work. So then my dad says to my mom and I, we should buy this green apple. I think it would be an awesome business. It seems like it would be recession-proof. Everybody needs a haircut. And that all made a lot of sense. But the price tag was quite high because Wayne had built a pretty good business. And it was $86,000 back in 1987. It was February 1987. And we decided to, or my parents decided to buy the business. And they were able to, at that time, basically just, they didn't have a home equity line of credit per se, they didn't have those things then, but they were able to take a line of credit to buy the business and use their house as collateral. And so my dad said, Jason, I'll tell you what, we're not going to put any money in, we're going to borrow all the money. If the business can pay itself off, you get half and we get half. How does that sound? I said, well, for sure, I'm in. Like, you're putting a lot of trust in me to give me half this business, so for sure, I'll work my butt off and make sure it happens. And I was really excited about it. So in April 13th, 1987, we took over the Green Apple. The reason we choose April 13th was because that was, April 12th was the final exam that I had in college. So now I was completely done college. We took over the Green Apple on April 13th, 1987. I was 18 years old. It was 3 months before my 18th birthday. And it was a pretty exciting and awesome time for a kid of that age to have this business, although my mother was there working right beside me. And the primary influence. And things were going quite well. We had 4 licensed hairdressers and we had 4 apprentice hairdressers. And the rules are in Alberta at that time you needed 1 licensed hairdresser for every apprentice hairdresser. And we were really busy. And the 4 licensed hairdressers were super busy and they had a lot of clientele. And so it was awesome. It was exciting going into work every day. And we weren't making a lot of money. I was making $800 a month, as was my mother. And so the business was able to sort of pay back that loan and pay us that $800 a month each. And we were there pretty much every hour the business was open. And then I'll remember this as clear as day. One of our key people, she got married on September of the long weekend. On the Saturday, we went to the wedding. On Monday, we get a phone call from her saying, can you please meet me at Green Apple? We weren't open on holidays then or Sundays. Things were a little different. So we went down there, the location was closed, and then our 4 licensed hairdressers were sitting on the bench. And, I knew the vibe wasn't good, didn't feel good. And they kind of said, can you guys sit down? So we sat down, and one of them stood up, kind of the ringleader, and she went on to sort of berate us for the next 15 minutes, tell us how terrible we were, and we were going to go broke, and they did all the work, and they were moving to a hair salon downtown, and they were taking their clients, and we were basically finished. And at that time, I felt very dejected. This was probably one of the very first times in my life, other than, that time in the 1980s when I was very young. But I really felt helpless and lost, and I really felt like a lot of weight was on my shoulders because my parents' house was on the line, and really without these 4 people, it felt like we were in a lot of trouble. And I remember after they left, they took their things, they left, I was just sitting there and I was crying at 19 years old, and I was crying on the bench. And my mom just looked at me, and of course she had to be tough because she's the mom. And I'm sure she was ready to cry herself, but anyway, she didn't. She said, Jason, you know what, we are going to build this business more amazing, more better than before they were ever here. And we're going to do that by being here every hour it's open, and we are going to treat our customers like gold, every single one of them. We're going to know their kids, we're going to know their holidays, we're going to know everything about them, we're going to make them feel amazing when they come here, and it's not going to matter that those 4 people left. And so we went on to do that, and my mom really set a high example and high standard of customer service and cleanliness. And so really the next point I would give you, other than hard work, the next very important lesson I learned was about customer service and how important customer service was in building and growing a business. And not just customer service where you don't really care about your customer, because customers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. My mom genuinely could sympathize, empathize. She cared about her customers. And I learned how to treat people and engage with people. And those lessons transponded for me much greater than an entrepreneur. I was elected to city council at 24 years old, the second youngest person ever elected. And part of the reason I was elected to city council was because I knew how to talk to people, and I knew how to treat them, and I knew how to listen and understand what they wanted. I was re-elected, had the most votes as a percentage of the total vote my second time and my third time. And to date, that's a record that still stands. I have the highest percentage of vote of the people that voted of any city councilor in the history of Red Deer in my last 2 elections. And I don't share that to brag. I share that more to understand that when I was working in the hair salon, you know, it's like you're like the barber, and everybody's coming in, and you really are in tune with the community. And when you're really in tune with the community, you're able to sort of deliver what they want as a politician. And that was really important. So that was a great education for me, those 9 years on city council, and it really helped my business and helped me personally. And so that was an important part of everything that happened. So really that all transpons back to customer service. And so we have this hard work lesson, we have this customer service lesson. Those are probably the 2 most important fundamental keys that really helped me and my business grow. And so as we're moving along now, we're in the late 1980s, and it's time for us sort of to grow. I mean, we're doing very well, and it's time for a second location. And at the time in the late 1980s, the Chamber of Commerce put on a session where every Monday for 12 weeks, they had 4 hours. It ran from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. And they brought in guest speakers, not unlike myself, but people that were very successful in business, and they shared ideas and strategies, and they had, you know, one Monday would be on marketing, one would be on customer service, and so on and so forth. And I owe a great debt of thanks to the Chamber of Commerce, because through those 12 sessions, it would be kind of like this session today, but you went for 12 weeks in a row. It was a massive time commitment, but I learned so much. And so being able to learn from those people really was kind of the next phase for me. Was all about advanced training and education. And kudos to all of you for being here, because that's really what you're doing and trying to do. And that was a really, really important turning point for our career. So we opened up a second location. And one of the things that I learned on those Monday nights, it seemed to be that probably half the speakers said it. And they would say, and I didn't know much then, I was just 19, maybe turning 20, and they would say the 3 most important things in business are location, location, and location. And I heard that over and over again, and really made that a founding principle of our business, and made sure that we had the best real estate. And Roy Kroc once said, McDonald's founder, he said, "I'm not in the hamburger business, I'm in the real estate business." So I can't stress enough how important that was for Chatters. And it may not apply to your business depending on the situation, but in most cases, location is fundamentally crucial, and it is for us. And it's one of our guiding principles today. You won't ever find a Chatters or a Green Apple in anything other than a AAA primary location. And so that's something I learned through this advanced training and education. And then I was able to take other training, and I would highly recommend that all of you do that. And a lot of it was industry-based. So, you know, as much as I've had all this great success, there's very little that I've invented myself in terms of our systems and our operations that make Chatters so successful. Most things I learned from others, and just being very inquisitive, going to hear people. What did they do? How are you successful? What are you doing? How are you paying your staff? What systems are you using? And really, so I really stress that's been a very important part. So we have the hard work, we have the customer service, we have the great locations, and we have this desire to achieve more by learning from others. And so that's really sort of was the next key point for me, was to learn from others and make sure that I was taking the time out of my schedule to attend opportunities to do that. So my father was on the board of directors for the Red Deer Co-op, and my mother was on the school board. This is back still in the late 1980s. And as a result of my father being involved in the Red Deer Co-op, he was able to know of an opportunity that existed in terms of a new real estate opportunity, and it would be the Deer Park Co-op Shopping Center, which still exists today. But back in the late 1980s, there wasn't much commercial development slated for the southeast side of the city, but that's where all the growth was going. So we knew we wanted to have a hair salon there. And because of my dad's connection to the Red Deer Co-op, and they were building a new grocery store, we were able to lease a spot in there and be the hair salon in the Deer Park Co-op. That was called the Green Apple, and it was located basically where Mucho Burrito is today. And that was sort of our second location. Our first location was in downtown Red Deer, where I think now it's called Popeye's Tanning, but it was on 55th and Gates, and it was, there used to be a Taco Time in there, and it was a fairly sketchy little plaza. But at the time, it was very good because the 67th Street River Bridge didn't exist. So to get to North Red Deer, you had to take the Gates Avenue River Bridge, and to get home, you'd pass right beside our door. And so at the time, that location was very premium, as everybody in the city who went north had to come by our location. So that was kind of the next thing. We opened up the second location. My mom was running one, I was running the other, and it was great. Things were going very well. And so sort of the next lesson for us to kind of get to the next stage was really about forming key partnerships. So, we had this lesson in hard work, customer service, advanced education, picking the right location, those kind of being the four key things up until that point. And then the next thing really came partnerships, because at some point in your business venture, you may need to partner with somebody or someone to kind of get your business to the next level. And so the first partner that came in outside of my parents and I was my sister. My sister attended University of Calgary for 5 years. She had a degree with distinction, a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Education. When she was done university, she really didn't want to teach school. And so she said, I'd like to get into this Green Apple business with you guys. What do you think? And I said, well, you can come in, but you need to go to hairdressing school, because that's one thing we're missing in our partnership, is we know how important the hairdressers are to our business, but we don't have any hairdresser. So Corrine, after graduating from university after 5 years with distinction, she went to Marvell College here in Red Deer and became a hairdresser and joined the family business. And that was really a key strategy for us. And then she was an amazing hairdresser. She now runs the entire marketing for the country of Canada and is still very engaged in the business. And I owe a lot to her, because she's been an incredible partner. But then we kind of get into the early 1990s, and this is where evolution is very important, because what happened in the hair business was things were starting to change on the retail side. So when I was first in the business, hair salons didn't really sell retail, or if they did, a small bottle of product would be $20 and very few people wanted it. And so in the early 1990s, out of Saskatchewan and Winnipeg, there was a couple of guys that were refilling bottles. So you would buy this $20 bottle, but then you could bring it back and you'd get it refilled for $8. And it was a booming thing, because people wanted to use salon products, not drugstore products. And so it seemed to be the next change in the business. And I was onto it very quickly. And that's something that we're really going to talk about today as we come toward the end of this keynote, is making sure your business is always current and relevant. And so this was kind of the new thing. It seemed like the new way to make money. So it also appeared that in order to be successful in retail at the time, there was no power centers, there was no Home Depots, there was no Lowe's, those places didn't exist. All the key retail was in enclosed shopping centers. And in Red Deer at the time, believe it or not, for those of you that are young, you might not believe this, Parkland Mall was the premium shopping center, and Bauer Mall was like the ghetto. You didn't want to go to Bauer Mall, you wanted to go to Parkland Mall. And so at that point I determined that I really needed to get into Parkland Mall and open up a Green Apple and put in a big retail component and a refill center. And that was my goal. And so I pursued with vigor the opportunity. I went up and I met with Gary Sayer. He was the manager of Parkland Mall at the time. And Gary's a very dear friend of mine to this day. And I went up there and I saw Gary, and I was a young guy, and I said, Gary, look, I want to do this retail concept. I think it's amazing. We're going to put it here in your mall. I see you have a couple empty spaces. When can I open? And he said, oh, wait. And this was one of my first lessons in leasing. I learned that even though they have empty space, they would rather not add another hair salon, because they already have a barbershop and hair salon, and they're more concerned about tenant mix than they are generating revenue. That was shocking to me. It still is to this day, because that phenomenon still exists. And so Gary said, no, we're not adding another hair salon, Jason. I'm sorry, you're out. and you can't get in this mall because we have Second Image and we have Adam and Eve Barbershop. And I was like, oh, I was dejected, and I left, and I was very disappointed. And this situation actually gets worse because about 2 months later, I'm walking through Parkland Mall, and I see a coming soon Chatters Salon sign. And I completely didn't understand. I stormed into Gary's office and I said, what the hell is going on, Gary? You told me I couldn't get in. We're sponsoring minor hockey, soccer, baseball. We're donating money in the community, and you're bringing some concept in out of Regina into your mall. And then there's kind of my second lesson in leasing. And leasing became a very important part of our business because, as I said, we're very much in the real estate business. And Gary Sayer said to me, he said, Jason, my boss from Regina leased the space to this guy. I don't know who it is, and I had no idea they were doing it. And I'm really sorry, but Chatters is coming into Parkland Mall. And so, lo and behold, 2 months later, this Chatters location's open. I didn't know much about Chatters, found out awful quick because now they were on our turf. They were in Parkland Mall. They had the A location. They had an amazing retail offering. Their service offering wasn't very good. But they had a good retail offering, and this sort of 40-year-old guy with a ponytail was the owner. His name was Ken Fisher, and there was all kinds of rumors about this guy. He's a drug dealer, he's this, he's that, he's this terrible guy. And I was writing on the rumors because I hated him. So we all hated this guy with a passion, and I had no idea. I didn't know anything about him. So don't ever judge a book by its cover. And anyway, we pursued with vigor trying to, we just couldn't get in that mall. So we went over to Bauer Mall, the secondary mall, and I went and saw Greg Stammer at the time. He was the manager. And Greg was able to put us into Bauer Mall. We were located right next to Woodward's, which closed 6 months after we opened, and we had this big dark space right beside us, and it wasn't optimal, but the thing was, even though that mall was not very good at the time, and we were beside a dark Woodward's, which later became the Bay, we were doing very well. We were selling a lot of retail, and we were cutting hair in it. And I realized that this new retail concept was phenomenal, and we were really good operators, Corrine and I, my sister and I. By this time, my mother was sort of part-time and phasing out of the business. It's 1993, and so my sister and I are really engaged running the business, and we're realizing that this new mall concept is really something, and we had to get on it. And so I knew Parkland Mall was still, like, when I saw how well we were doing in Bauer and there was virtually no traffic, it would be like being in Parkland Mall today versus Bauer Mall today. I thought, geez, if we could get in Parkland Mall, this would be really amazing. And there was an independent salon in Parkland Mall called Second Image, and it was owned by an older lady, Sylvia Soderberg, and a great family. They were icons in the hair business. And I approached Sylvia and I said, Sylvia, will you sell me your salon? I really want to buy your salon in Parkland Mall. And she was getting older, but her kids were running the business, and they were great people, Heather and Tim, and they were running the business. And Sylvia said, no, Jason, I'm not interested in selling the business at all. No desire. I said, well, Sylvia, everything's for sale. She said, no, Jason, no, it's not. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So anyway, I left, and I really wanted in Parkland Mall. I knew that was a key thing. And I thought, gee, should I phone this drug dealer and see if he'll sell me Chatters? So interestingly enough, I reached out to Ken Fisher and I said, can I meet you about buying Chatters? He said, it's not for sale. I said, Ken, everything's for sale. Then I got the response I expected. He goes, yeah, it is actually. I'd be happy to meet you. So we met, and the interesting thing was, he said, come stop by my salon, pick me up, we'll go for coffee. So I stopped by Chatters in Parkland Mall. Ken's cutting the lady's hair. I said, no problem, meet me. He said, no, let's go. He left the lady in his chair for half an hour while we went for coffee and food court. That's a true story. So some of these, he was one of these hairdressers that was just out there. I mean, the guy's an amazing individual. And I went for coffee with him, and he was instantly likable. And everything I thought about him just went out the window, and it just wasn't true. And so I met him and I said, well, will you sell me the salon? And he said, well, Jason, I'm building a chain. I have 5 Chatters right now. I have 4 in Regina, 1 in Spruce Grove, and 1 in Red Deer. I can't really sell Red Deer. I moved here from Regina last year. This is a key location for us. We're trying to improve our buying power with all of our vendors. So for me to sell this location just wouldn't make sense. So we just kept talking, and I said, well, what if I bought it and called it Green Apple, but we kept the brand Chatters up there and worked something out, not a franchise, but kind of something like that. And he was very intrigued by that. So really it was about trying to make a partnership work that really needed to happen. And so we ended up doing a deal to buy the location under that. And so the very first Green Apple in Parkland Mall had a big sign that said Green Apple and a real small green neon that said at Chatters. And it was very unusual, but it worked well. We paid him an exorbitant amount of money for that location in 1993, or 1995 now. It was $300,000. I bought his shares, not his assets, and it was like spending a ridiculous amount. And the reason we were able to afford to do that is my dad was doing quite well in the construction business, and he came and he stepped up again. And oftentimes when you look at very successful people, their parents helped them at some point, and my parents helped me. And I owe them so much for that. And my dad said, yeah, you know, I'll definitely co-sign this line of credit for $300,000. So he did that. But before we executed the deal, we had this location downtown. And now the 67th Street River Bridge was open. The traffic wasn't so good going by this location anymore. So I surveyed my clients and said, if I moved to Parkland Mall, would you follow us? And 88% said they would. And so it's very important to be in tune with your customers. Before I made the decision to buy that location, because I was paying so much for it, his business in and of itself didn't work. He actually lost $20,000 a year we bought it. But if I inlaid the business from the downtown Green Apple, all of a sudden the thing appeared, based on the projections I did, it was going to make over $200,000 year one. And that was a shocking amount of money in 1995. I couldn't believe that we would actually do that, but that's what the numbers said would happen if 88% of my business came and I was able to maintain his business. So we were able to pay that, and it looked like it'd be about a year and a half payback. So we bought the business, and we were much better operators. And so even on the retail side of the business, we did almost double what he was doing. All this service came, and we had this booming location. I made over $300,000 the first year I owned that location. And so all that work and strife to get in that mall really made a lot of sense the whole time. I knew it would, and it really paid off. And that was really the turning point, because I had this sort of unusual partnership with Chatters, where I was flying their banner, and that was really the beginning of an amazing, amazing partnership. So for 3 years we agreed to keep Chatters on that location. And after 3 years, he could open in Red Deer and I could open in other parts of Canada. That was sort of the deal we struck. So 3 years came up, it's 1998. I go sit down with Ken and I said, okay, now I'm going to try and open, but I couldn't get locations. He was getting all kinds of locations, but he was not a good operator. But in the leasing world, they loved him. It's an kind of, for lack of a better term, it's kind of an old boys club, the enclosed mall leasing. It's changing, but it was that way. And so if you were a cigar smoking scratch golfer, you were getting great real estate. And that is not me. Anybody who knows me knows I'm sure as hell not a scratch golfer, and I don't smoke cigars. And so to get in with those landlords was really challenging for me. But Ken Fisher was a master at it. And we were as much in the real estate business as we were the hair business, so that was really important. So when I sat down with Ken in 1998, he knew he needed me and I knew I needed him. And as much as, you know, he had the majority of the company, he wanted to keep the majority of the company. He was already at 14 locations, I was just at 4 in Red Deer. And so he was able to sell my sister and I 25% of the business. And that's really an important lesson about partnership, because I could see that 25% of that business, that's all he would sell me. He wanted to keep control. He had his sister and another partner involved. But sometimes a smaller piece of a bigger pie is worth it. And as much as my sister and I did the bulk of the work over those years, and I say that in an operational standpoint, but Ken Fisher provided a lot of vision. He provided the real estate, the leasing. I take nothing away from him. He did an amazing job. We built that business together, and that was a partnership that needed to happen. So really, my emphasis here on that key learning is sometimes you need to form a partnership, and maybe the terms aren't exactly what you want, but if it's necessary to take you to the next level, you need to do that. And sometimes as you're growing your business, you can be in your business. And when I was at those Monday night sessions, this is really, really important. The most important thing I heard at those sessions was one of the speakers said, if you were in the hospital for 6 months and you came out of the hospital and your business hadn't changed, it was either the same or better, then you are truly successful. And so that is something that I really wanted to strive, because at the time that seemed almost impossible. If I disappeared or my mom disappeared, we thought the wheels would come off, because the business relied on us so heavily. And so in order to expand and grow a business, the one thing that you have to understand is you have to give up control. You'll never make as much money on each unit. If I went into a Chatters Day and ran the front desk like I did in 1995, that Chatters would definitely make more money than it does just having paid people to do it. But I'm able to have 100 of them instead of 1 of them. And that's really, really important that you all understand that you need to trust in your employees and you need to allow them to run your business at some point. Now there's always, of course, at first you have to get in, but that's really, really important if you want to grow, to be able to get to that point. So Ken and I had this amazing partnership, and the next stage for us really was about making sure we stayed relevant and current. We started opening up salons. He moved to Kelowna in 2000. He played 156 rounds of golf that year because his job was leasing, and golf and leasing went together. And my sister and I were working our butts off on the operations, and it really was a great partnership. And we kind of went from 18 locations in '98, and we were just opening locations, but we were always staying relevant. We were always advancing our concept. We never stood still. We always knew what was new, what was happening. And like going from in-close, I remember when they started building power centers, because remember, real estate was really important, location, location, location. And I thought to myself, gee, all the new real estate is power centers. Who the hell is shopping in -30 in a power center? It made no sense to us. We were scared to death to open Chatters in a power center because we didn't think people would come. They'd come maybe in the summer, but who's coming in the winter? So finally we just knew we had to be current. All the new real estate was power centers, so we just embraced it and we opened, and our power center locations did better than our enclosed mall locations. And so we just always stayed relevant. And so one thing that I'd really stress is that you stay current. And as an entrepreneur, you need to be abreast of technology. I have friends, one of my good friends is the CEO of a very large engineering firm. And I know Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I am very engaged in all of these things, and not because I have a bunch of time, because I don't have time. But because it's very relevant to business. If you want to be in business today and you don't know new technology and how all these things work, you are destined to fail. And so, he says, no, I don't have time for that bullshit. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, is the 5th wealthiest man in the world. Now, when I use Facebook, I don't pay anything, and probably none of you do. You've never paid to use Facebook. So how can you be the 5th wealthiest person in the world? He is generating billions of dollars from businesses like Chatters in revenue. And so to not understand how Facebook works as a consumer, how as a business owner can you understand how to use it to use your business? So make no mistake, I encourage all of you to be abreast of all of the technologies, including things that your kids and grandkids are using like Snapchat. Very, very, very amazing tool for marketing. So you need to be abreast of all those things. And by the way, if you get on those things, your kids will be like, whoa. In fact, they'll probably switch to some other form of social media. And so finally, I guess what I've really shared with you is you need partnerships, you need great real estate. For us, advanced training and education was key, impeccable customer service and hard work. But there are really 2 other things that really set Chatters apart. And the first one is employees. So our employees have always been extremely important to us because, as I said, I wouldn't be able to grow without them. So treating employees with the utmost of respect and care and attention is as important as how you treat your customers. So impeccable employee service is as important as incredible customer service. And I learned that very young, and I have people that have worked for me for over 30 years, and it's truly humbling, but it's really, really important. And so we take great care and attention to treat our employees well, and I encourage all of you to do that, because some of my employees would jump in front of a bullet for me, and that's an amazing thing. And so that's really, really important. And then finally, community involvement or philanthropic efforts are super important. So, we've always been very engaged in our community, giving back, and now we can do more than we maybe could have back in the 1990s, but if people came and they needed door prizes or things like that, we found ways to help them and assist them and always be engaged in the community, because it's fundamentally important that you're viewed as community-minded and you're giving back to the community. And so those are really key things that have sort of set Chatters apart, that have helped us grow from 1 location back in 1987 to 101 today. There's a lot of other things that happened in terms of our partnership. We started Tommy Guns in 2009. That was a men and boys concept. Again, always evolving, always knowing what the trends are. Currently there are 50 Tommy Guns in Canada. But back in 2015, one of the things, sometimes partnerships change. So although my partnership with Ken Fisher was amazing, his kids were getting older, he lived in Kelowna, His core value is family, as is mine. He wanted to be near his kids and his grandkids. His kids were in the business. Living in Red Deer was not an option for Ken. He didn't want to move, but he wanted to be near his grandkids. So he approached me. He said, Jason, I want to move Tommy Guns to Kelowna. My kids can run it. It's really important to me. And I wasn't overly comfortable with that. And so at that point I realized that this 18-year partnership, as amazing as it was probably at an end. So in July 2015, I found a new partner who could help me buy out Ken Fisher out of Chatters. He bought myself and Kareen out of Tommy Guns. He moved Tommy Guns to Kelowna. We still own the Tommy Guns in Red Deer as franchises of Ken. But we sort of separated businesses, and I took a new phase. Now I took a private equity partner. It's a company called OnCap. They're owned by OnX, which is one of Canada's largest publicly traded companies. So they invested tens of millions of dollars into Chatters to buy out my partner. And so now I'm partnered with this amazing private equity company based out of Toronto that now we're going to take Chatters to the very next level. We plan to open 30 or 40 locations in Ontario over the next 5 years. We plan to grow our e-commerce business materially. We plan to really work diligently with technology to make sure that we're doing all of the customer journey tracking, making sure that if Jane Doe uses this particular gel and she buys it every 5 weeks and she gets her hair colored every 7 weeks, and marketing to Jane exactly the way she wants. So Jane will get marketing from Chatters that nobody else will get. And that's very important. Some people call it CRM, data mining, customer journey tracking, but there's so much technology out there now to really market directly to your customer. And the wonderful thing about that is your competitors have no idea what you're doing. And so that's the amazing thing about making sure you have the right technology to market to your customers. And so that's something Chatters hasn't done. So when our new partners came in, they were like, this is all opportunity. These guys have a great business and they're not even mining their customers' data and marketing to them. So we have all these really incredible areas to grow Chatters, and you're going to see it grow exponentially over the coming 5 years, and so we're just totally thrilled and excited. That's kind of my story. There's so many things more that I could share that would be interesting and funny and great, but we only have 45 minutes, and I did want to leave a few minutes if anybody wanted to ask a question.